Be a part of the conversation with the business owners you know. The Michigan Business Wrap is live from downtown Lansing next to the Grand Traverse Pie Company. Welcome back. My name is Tony Cuthbert. This is the Business Wrap. We're talking how to successfully use co-branding and co-marketing, joined by a panel of experts, and they are
Courtney Mackey, Glow Social Media, and Second Brain Collective.
Ash Harris, Akia Web Solutions, Second Brain Collective.
Paul Schmidt, UnoDeuce Multimedia, and Second Brain Collective.
Chris Buck from CJ Buck Consulting and 2BC.
Lori Richard, CEO of Edge Partnerships.
And Chris?
Well, I was just thinking, we've talked a little bit about how we've gotten together with our 4 brands, and to give everyone a little bit of a peek behind the curtain and for me to get some free advice from Lori, I want to just remind everyone we are 4 existing entities, LLCs or S-Corps or whatever we've decided to be, that have joined forces to kind of sell the 4 of us either together as a package or a pick and choose and use us as you'd like. We do not have, while the Second Brain Collective is a website, secondbraincollective.com, gives you information about the 4 companies, drives you to our individual websites and our individual brands. We don't have any kind of legal agreement. We don't have any kind of an established LLC or corporate entity as a Second Brain Collective. There's no cash flowing between the 4 of us jointly that gets dispersed in some manner. It's legitimately for individual businesses. We figured we would do this first and then see where it takes us, kind of with the philosophy of slow and right is better than fast and wrong. And I would love to hear about your opinions of what we're doing, good and bad. We're tough enough to take it. But then I think more importantly for the listeners, talk about a normal partnership. You know, you talk about 2 brands joining together. I'm sure that probably has a very deep legal and accounting infrastructure built into that partnership. So I'd love to have you give us some feedback and then pile on if you would.
Great. Well, first of all, I have to say, I want to give you all like a big hug because this is earthy, it's pure, it's good, and people don't always align business with those attributes. And so because I've been in business long enough and I put my MBA hat on, I know there's also protections. So not in your situation, but say one of you kept feeding business to the other with no reciprocated benefit. And that just may be out of the goodness of your heart. But as those kind of situations start bubbling up and there's no formal structure in place, it can cause for the end of friendships. And that's the last thing we want to avoid in business. People say don't go into business with friends or family. Well, we have both in our business, but we also have protections in place in case someone goes sideways or somebody has a personality change or God knows what, whatever drives individual people. So my business partner and I are equal business partners, and it's outlined in our articles of incorporation. And so any given day, we're 50% if one of us would walk away, so we'd have to asset the business. It involves legal, so I'm smart enough to know what I don't know, and so I hire professionals to outline to protect ourselves so we can go about loving and enjoying our business without the concerns of one partner or one member of our team, going sideways or diminishing that brand we've worked so hard for. So it's about protection. It's not about two great friends can get together, 4 great friends can get together and build something really awesome. But as that grows and people seek your services, and I talked about doubling your marketing budget, in your case quadrupling. You want to bring your assets together to grow this great thing you've built. And so that's the time you've become sophisticated enough that you should probably start considering your organizational structure and getting on paper and having some agreements in place. And what that will avoid is the end of friendships.
Let me ask you this. So if we decided we needed to do that or any new companies out there that yet to be named wanted to join, are there attorneys that specialize in this, and do they have kind of a fill in the blanks? These are the things to think about, and here's kind of some premeditated language that you might want to use, or do we need to come to the table and say, we're worried about this and we want to prevent this, and these are the things we're concerned about?
Absolutely. There are services. There's HR, there's lawyers, there's CPAs, there's financial planners, there's insurance companies that protect those business entities. And we also have a property company, so we have properties involved in our business. And so there are professionals out there, and there are great resources like the Lansing Chamber of Commerce, the Small Business Association of Michigan, and others who can help those startup businesses get those services they need to be successful and to protect their interests.
My experience too with some of the small business owners I've engaged in as CJ Buck Consulting is making sure that the rules are documented, that, and this is employer to employee or even higher level management folks within these operations. You want to really make sure you talk about the ugly stuff when the relationship is really good. Because you don't want to try to broach a subject of what's going to happen when things start to deteriorate. And I just had a client have that happen. A key pivotal person left and kind of felt like they could take a lot of the stuff with them. And unfortunately, I wasn't there when that relationship started, and there was not a lot of grounds to try to negotiate a amiable exit for this person because the blood was already bad. So when we hired a new person, we made sure that the paperwork that new person came on from a non-compete and intellectual information, intellectual properties and things of that nature.
Unfortunately or fortunately, we learned from our mistakes. So I think it is fortunate, but sometimes you get burned so bad that it destroys your business and your credibility. So I totally agree with you that you have to have those critical conversations early. They're not fun to have. My business partner is my best friend. We're family. To have a financial planner talk to us about, how about if she doesn't decide to work anymore and you're carrying all the weight? And we're like, oh, that'll never happen. But you have to have those conversations and you both agree. And then you don't have to talk about it again because it's taken care of.
And I think one other thing that maybe a lot of other business owners listening might wonder about is what do you do when someone approaches you? Say a business owner just says, wow, we love what we do, what you do at Edge, and we've all had that happen. And how do you vet, or how do you choose? How do you politely say, this right. the brand's not right?
Well, Courtney, that's a great question because we've been approached over the years by so many people. Success breeds success, and the services all of us offer are in demand. And so there are all these ideas. And so I keep my mission, vision, and values right next to my desk. Every business decision I make, I reflect on that. That's my brand. And so not that we can't grow and be a little bit flexible on who we are, but when we lose sight of that, what we do is we take away from our core. And it's a distraction. So I've gotten very disciplined over the years about really staying true to our core. And that is something that does take discipline because everybody has a million good ideas, business startup ideas, and I'd love to help them pursue every one. But I know my bandwidth is only so wide, and my core is my Edge brand. So you have to be very selective. But that's a great question because the more people you interact with, the more successes that you share with them, the more they want a piece of you.
Just dawned in my head that we went into the break with a teaser that we never came back around. You were talking about where you're from, sweetest place on earth. It just popped into my head, so I figure we owe it to the listening audience to close that circle.
Well, the prize goes to Hershey, Pennsylvania. I was born in that sweet city. And an example of a successful co-brand is Hershey's and General Mills. So more specifically under the General Mills umbrella is Betty Crocker. So now you can't buy a Betty Crocker chocolate cake mix without the big Hershey label on. So it raises both brands. They still have their core brands, of course, but it's a very sweet, if you will, co-branding, co-partnership.
How about failures? Do you have any kind of high-profile companies that maybe tried it and exploded, and maybe you've got some insight as to why that happened?
I won't name names, but we sit in a city where I've seen many agencies, not many, a handful of agencies that the business partners have gone their separate ways and built their new successful brands. So because it's too close to home, I won't name those names, but some people may know who those are. I don't have any that come to mind initially. Well, Jeep Chrysler, I think that brand ended up, I'm not an expert on that, but there are some that came together, and because the brands couldn't integrate successfully, they've separated ways and pursued other interests.
And I think Jeep and Chrysler are still together. I think it was Mercedes, Daimler Chrysler.
Yes.
They joined forces for a while and I think split. So
thank you for that correction.
And I think that kind of goes back to why brand and culture is so important, because if you are not completely certain of your culture, especially at a large organization like that, if you don't know what's happening down the line and you say, sure, we can mesh these two together, and then you realize that middle management on either side has completely different philosophies and it will be impossible for them to work together. So it is really important to take a good look at all levels of the business and make sure it integrates from beginning to end.
And remembering that brand starts at the core. So when big brands come together, sometimes the frontliners don't embrace that new brand. And so you have a dissolution of that co-branded entity. And so it always starts internally. Any brand initiative has to start internally.
I don't know if this is going to go too deep into it, but publicly traded companies and privately traded companies, and I think about venture capitalist groups that are buying these major brands, really just to try to drive stock prices, and I worry about that. I know in my corporate America world, our brand purchased another brand, and the reason we picked that other brand to purchase was because they were also a privately held company, and we understood the value as the buying brand, that being a privately held company gave you the autonomy to do the right things for the right reasons, and if we could keep our books private, whereas we don't have to kowtow to shareholders. I'm not sure if there's a question in any of that, but can you?
It's insightful at the very least.
But have you seen publicly traded companies buy privately traded companies and have that not work out?
Yeah, I have seen it. I've been more on the side of successes because they have done things correctly. So we're working with a national company right now who have absorbed a bunch of smaller entities and grew their brand. But organizationally, silos still exist, and so that continues to be a problem. And so we look at processes and organizational development, what drives people, because silos, the bigger you get, the more apparent they become, those silos. And that really diminishes communication, effectiveness, and efficiencies. And so luckily, I've been more on the side of successful ventures like that.
I want to look at Paul's situation in particular on this one with this group all together right now. You are from the Metro Detroit area. You come to Lansing. You don't really know anybody. And we're talking about forming these partnerships, the vetting process. I mean, we're talking values aligning. I got to look at this company top to bottom and figure out that this is all going to work out. How does one company go about doing something like that?
Not from your chair in your apartment or home or office. I mean, I know, with respect to what Courtney does, you have to get out there and talk and meet and do the face-to-face stuff. I mean, it's face-to-face networking is obviously important to us. We developed our own networking event that happens every month. However, that's what I had to do. It's almost like, I'm the new kid in town. Who do I meet? Who do I talk to? Where do I go? And so you start, that's basically what it is. And then you meet folks and you either get a good vibe from them or they say, oh, we're already using a vendor in that space, but you should talk to this organization. And so, like I said, when I came here, social media wasn't quite, I don't know what you want to say. Like it wasn't one of those things that businesses did. But they did have websites, and there was a lot of web developers. So that's where I started. I started to talk to them as well as try to, do network or, promote what I'm doing. But that's just basically it. You just have to mesh with the right folks. And, when I met Courtney, it was at a Lansing Chamber event, their morning 360s, I think it was. Mm-hmm. As soon as she said what she did, after that thing was over, I beelined right over to her. And I was like, look, I produce content. You shout it out to the world. This is what you need. And she's like, yeah, let's talk. And I met Ash several years ago. And that
also at a chamber event.
Yeah, right. At a chamber event, we sat down and talked. And that was just, one of those things where, his philosophies on dealing with clients really meshed with the way I did. And so that was like, oh, okay, that's pretty cool. And so, we found out we had some mutual clients and from there it's history and how we got to the table. And then we met Chris, and that's, but to bring it back, how I met or how I vetted and all that was getting out and just trying to find, just getting out there. There's all sorts of events, whether it's chamber, there's a lot of business associations. There's multiple chambers, multiple strong chambers. And then there's, I think the first thing I found was on meetup.com. And I was like, okay, that looks like something that I could go to. I went and there was like 50 people there. I'm like, whoa. So that's how it all stems.
And like you said, we do give the Lansing Chamber a lot of credit because that's really how we all had either our very first or our first couple interactions with each other. And that was upon my returning from college and starting my career in social media. Upon returning to Lansing, that was the first place I went, was to the chamber, and just made a commitment to go to every single thing the chamber had for an intense period of time so I could meet a lot of different business owners and kind of diversify who I knew in the area. And I will say that it absolutely paid off.
So Paul, like you said, get off your rear end, get out
Absolutely.
there, and get meeting.
You gotta
with people.
hustle.
Meetup.com, that's not a dating app.
No, I'm sorry to ruin that one for you.
Let's wrap it up here on the Business Wrap. A big thank you to our experts today, and they were
Courtney Mackey, Glow Social Media, and Second Brain Collective.
Ash Harris, Akia Web Solutions, and Second Brain Collective.
Paul Schmidt, UnoDeuce Multimedia, and Second Brain Collective.
Chris Buck of CJ Buck Consulting, and also the 2BC family.
Lori Rashar, Edge Partnerships.
Thank you all so much for joining us. My name is Tony Cup. Thank you to Morgan Hall, the producer, and we close each show with our founder, Suzanne Ewart, and she says,
That's a wrap.